It all started after moving into my new house. Yeah, it's pretty cliche, believe me, I know. But it's what happened. I never experienced anything supernatural before, and though interested, I never really expected anything to happen to me. I was able to rent the house for pretty cheap. I didn't think anything of it because it was old and not in the best of neighborhoods, so I guess I just got a good deal. After moving everything in, things were fine for a while. I don't remember exactly when it started because it seemed so minor at the time. I'd leave a light on in the kitchen or the bathroom and come back to find it off. Honestly, I thought I was just forgetting that I turned them off already when I came back. After a while, I began to wonder if I started leaving a couple of lights on purpose. Sometimes nothing would happen. Sometimes I come back to find the lights off. By now, I figured out something was off. I wasn't really scared but confused. I thought maybe something was wrong with the electronics. I started leaving the lights on a bit more often because I thought I might be able to get some sign of why they would randomly shut off. That's why when it started to take a turn. The first real time I remember something crazy happening was when I left the kitchen and the living room light on while I was asleep. I woke up to a deep rumbling growl coming from the kitchen, now from the bedroom. You could see down the hall to the living room. That room is connected to the kitchen. I remember waking up and thinking there was an animal or something in my house. I looked down the hall towards the living room to see the light darken. Somebody had flicked off the light from the kitchen. Another low growl. The low growl came from the living room, and I nearly screamed as I saw something bolt across the length of the hall opening, and then the living room light went out. I couldn't tell exactly what it was going though. It just seemed like a black shadow or something. It really didn't matter. I was scared shitless. I bolted up my bed and then threw on the bedroom light, expecting something to be in the room and getting ready for it to come after me. Nothing. There wasn't really anything in the room. I let out a low breath and slowly moved down the hall into the living room. Once I got to the end, I practically ran to throw the light switch there. Again, nothing. Kitchen next, and once again, nothing. I was starting to think I dreamed of all of it before I went to turn off the kitchen light and stopped. Now, I was a grown man, but here I was terrified to turn off that switch, and I'll admit it. I slept with the lights on all night. That was a mistake. When I woke up the next morning, all the lights were off once again. I went to push myself out of bed and winced as my body felt sore. I pulled the sheets and saw long red lines running along my legs and arms. It looked like something scratched me all night. That terrified the hell out of me, but not nearly so much that I saw around the house. Every light I left on was smashed. Every bulb that was on last night broken. Every lamp knocked over and smashed. My breath caught in my throat as I looked around. Something was fucked up as hell here. And something tried to, well, do something to me. I couldn't for work that day and went immediately to replace all the lights. I didn't know what to do then. I thought about leaving, and I know this probably sounds stupid, but this was my home. It was my first time away from family, and this was my home. I couldn't give it up, so I stayed, even as it got worse. Even though I was beginning to become terrified of the dark, I couldn't really sleep with the light on me at night in the bedroom. I'd rather leave other lights on, though, in the hall or in the living room, giving myself to see pretty well in my darkened room. And almost every night, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, hear something growling, and probably go in the living room until the lights would show off. I didn't want to go look. I was terrified at the thought of being in the same room with whatever was in there. So I curled up in my bed and prayed it never came in. One night after this went on for a while, I had it. I bought a gun and turned on every light in the house, then sat down in the middle of the room with my gun on my lap and a baseball bat sitting next to me. I waited. There was nothing at first for a long time. At around 2 in the morning, I began to hear it. Oddly, it was behind me. I turned and peeked towards the hall to my bedroom, and I could hear that familiar growl. I swallowed and held my gun in one hand and the bat in the other, and slowly began to step around to get to a better view of the bedroom from the living room. As I began to get a view of my bed, I heard a loud thump, followed by an inhuman roar. I, being the brave man I was, jumped back and away from the hallway. I wanted to end this all, but dear God, I didn't want to deal with what that thing was. I could hear tearing and smashing, but I don't know how I caught it, but I managed to hear an audible click, and then nothing. Slowly, I went to peek down the hall, and the light was off once again. A deep breath, I ventured forth with my weapons ready. When I came to my bedroom and flicked the lights back on, I gasped. My bed was ravaged, torn completely apart. It was like some animal had jumped onto it and was ripping it to shreds. I stepped forward to look at what was left of my bed and just stood in shock for who knows when. It wasn't until I heard the sound of a familiar growl that I turned around, standing near my door. Right at the light switch was when I finally saw it. It was a man, a white and rotting man with a mangled body that looked like he had once been a dog's chew toy, staring at me. I was too in shock to raise any of my weapons. He stared at me for a moment and then just flicked out the lights. I screamed. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I screamed and bolted. I didn't care where that man had been standing. I ran past where I had seen him swinging my bat like a madman. I nearly put a hole in the hallway as I ran through into the safe light of the hall. I turned back then, just in time to see him once again near the hall's light switched. He turned it off too. By then, I didn't want to fight. I wanted to be safe. I burst past the living room into the brightness of my kitchen. I heard the sound of growling and scratching nearly all around me, and then I knew he was coming back. I looked back once again to see that mangled and rotted corpse of a man turn off the light with a broken finger and plunge into terrifying darkness. I broke for the living room. This is going to be my final stand, and I had to fight here. I drew close to the standing lamp that was my last line of defense. I hated the dark, so I stayed right there, next to the company standing lamp. I waited for it to turn off, but it never did. I looked around, quiet, but nothing but quiet. I turned then to look to see the saving grace of a lamp that refused to yield. I started to find myself laughing like a crazy, but a live laughed, and I thought I'd finally be okay. I stepped closer, and I swear I almost hugged the lamp. Until I saw it. I heard the growl first come from behind me, but in front. From that lamp, my eyes widened, and I stared at the light from that lamp intensified. I stumbled back, and I don't know what happened, but I think I tripped on something. I just don't know. I found myself flat on my back, staring at the bright, intense light. It wasn't comforting any longer. Just hot and heavy. And bright. I thought it was going to burn me away, and then it came. I don't have the words to describe what poured in from my lamp's light. It was hideous, twisted, and filled with rage, and I'll never forget those eyes, though. Bright, hot, and white. Two glowing circles of pure malice. It hated me. It hated everything about me. And not just me, it hated all of us. Every human being. But it was stuck here. And it would lash out at what it could. Me. I don't know how I knew this, but I just knew. I lunged, and it lunged for me, and I prepared myself for a painful death. Click. The light went out. Once again came darkness, sweet, quiet, and relaxing darkness. I stayed on the ground for a long moment, letting my eyes adjust, and I kept my gaze fixated on where my standing lamp was. As the seconds passed, I could start to make him out. That mangled man standing by the lamp, one torn hand open on the switch as he looked down at me. I understood then. I understood what it all meant. Everything that happened. The man pulled his hand away from it, and pointed his mangled finger toward it before, very clearly shaking his head from side to side. All I could find myself doing was nodding. He wasn't the one trying to harm me. All this time, all those instances, he was trying to protect me. That creature could only come in the light, and this mangled man had been trying to keep me safe. He didn't want someone else to repeat his mistakes. I moved out the very next day and never looked back. Whatever it was confined in that house, and so far nothing had came from another life source. However, that thing always sticks with me in my mind. Every night in my new apartment, I made a habit of wandering around the house, making sure every light is off, every curtain is closed, and make sure to plunge myself in quiet, comforting, and safe pitch darkness.